something today.
This is the most premium, highest priced TX16S you can buy today, but there is a reason why it would not be my personal choice. The Radiomaster TX16S is the most popular radio in FPV today. At least that's my opinion. In fact, I own 4 of them. And one of the things that makes this radio so popular is how Radiomaster has continued to improve it. So in this video, we're going to run through the different variants of the Radiomaster TX16S that are available today. We're going to talk about the new V2 Radiomaster TX16S and some of the improvements they've made. And we are going to talk, which one is it? We are going to look at the new JB branded Radiomaster TX16S, which is the first one with built-in ExpressLRS. That's right, this is not FreeSky, this is ExpressLRS, and it's built right in. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Before we look at the different variants of the radio, so you can decide which one you're going to like best, I want to go over the changes that Radiomaster has made in the new V2 version. Some of them are subtle, and some are a little more significant. And the most significant ones include new charging circuitry with integrated reverse polarity protection. So if you somehow plug your battery in backwards, then you will not end up damaging anything or getting a fire. The charging port on the bottom can now charge at up to 2.2 amps, so it will charge your batteries a little bit faster. Rear-mounted audio jack provides headphone output. There is also a trainer port here on top of the radio, and that has been changed to a standard TRS style 3.5mm socket. If you are one of the people who uses a trainer cable and you have a trainer cable that has been working on previous ones, this pinout, this plug type has changed, although it should be easier to get a standard plug to work now instead of having to find a special trainer cable plug. The gimbal on the V2 has been upgraded with improved internal circuitry for cleaner signal with less jitter and improved recentering. It's the same circuitry that is in the ultra high-end AG01 gimbals that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video. The S1 and S2 knobs here on the front face of the radio have been upgraded with a much stronger center detent. And the radio's grips on the back can come in either a high profile or a low profile slim design, depending on what feels best to your hands. Now here's one of the biggest problems with the TX16S product line. There are variants of the TX16 from about, I think around $180 is the current lowest price point, all the way up to like $500. And it's not really clear to a lot of people what you're getting when you buy those higher priced radios. And it gets even more confusing because we can look at Radiomaster's website and see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many versions they sell. But in addition, there's custom versions like the JB version, and PyroDrone has their own version, and 533 has their own version, and Lumenier has their own version. And for all I know, Radiomaster is making custom versions with other people, and it turns out that there's only like 4 or 5 features that actually differentiate these radios, and I'm going to help you sort those out so you know what you're getting. So this right here is the most basic Radiomaster TX16S. Let's talk about its features. Big color screen. That's going to be true for all of the radios. Touchscreen. That's going to be true for all of the radios. However, the touchscreen on the original Radiomaster TX16S was not active because OpenTX didn't support it. Right now, Radiomaster is shipping all of these radios with EdgeTX pre-installed, which means that you get access to some new features and bug fixes that EdgeTX has that OpenTX doesn't, and EdgeTX supports the touchscreen. So if you've been thinking about upgrading your radio to EdgeTX, Radiomaster's already done it for you. The base TX16S has Hall effect gimbals. That means that the gimbals have magnetic sensors in them as opposed to a physical potentiometer. And the advantage of Hall effect gimbals is that they last a lot longer. There's really nothing to wear out. Yes, there are ball bearings in the gimbals, but those ball bearings are really not subject to very much stress and will essentially last forever. The main thing that wears out in standard potentiometer gimbals is that the potentiometer that senses the stick position and converts it to electrical signals, it's physically rubbing. A brush is rubbing on a graphite. That looked a little lewd. I'm sorry, children. It's rubbing on a graphite whatever pad, and that it wears out, and you get the stick stops recentering, and you get bad stick readouts and jumpy signal. Hall effect gimbals are essentially immune to that and essentially last forever. The other thing you should notice is that this gimbal does not have the adjustment screws on the front of the radio. So all of the radios that Radiomaster is shipping today have this upgraded gimbal with adjustment screws on the front to adjust things like the up and down stick travel, if you like a little less or a little more travel, as well as whether the gimbal recenters or not, so you can move your throttle from the left to the right without opening up the back of the radio. All of these radios come with a JR module bay in the back, so you can put your Crossfire, Tracer, Ghost, or ExpressLRS module in the back of the radio. However, some of these radios have started shipping with ExpressLRS built in, and we're going to talk about that more later in the video. And as far as batteries go, they ship with a cradle for two 18650 cells. They do not ship with the batteries themselves because shipping batteries is getting more and more complicated these days. So you'll have to source your own cells, or you should do what I do and get something like this big honkin' 5000 milliamp hour 2S battery. I'll put a link to that in the video description, as well as a link to all the other stuff I'm talking about in this video. So now let's move from the standard Radiomaster TX16S to the Radiomaster TX16S Max, which is the next step up. And the main place you're going to see a difference between the Max and the standard one is here in the buttons. So these buttons on the standard one are plastic. The jog wheel on the standard one is metal. The side grips on the standard one are plastic, and the faceplate is relatively plain. Nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't have any cool designs. And I have just realized that these switch nuts here on the standard TX16S, the purple switch nuts, I actually put those on. It comes with plain switch nuts. And the reason that I just realized that is that when we go to the TX16S Max, one of the things you get is colored hardware. In addition to the colored hardware, the TX16S Max comes with different faceplates. Now, the shape of the faceplate is the same between the standard TX16S and the TX16S Max, but the TX16S Max has a little bit heavier plastic and just a little bit more sort of solid design. In addition, the Max comes with these leatherette side grips instead of the plastic side grips. And again, it's not going to make like a big difference in your day-to-day flying, but it does give it a little bit more premium feel. Well, crap. I was just looking for a picture of all the different colors that the TX16S Max comes in, and it looks like the Mk2, which is the new one, the one you want, they're only offering it in red and black or black. Or you could, the JB version, which we'll take a look at later, purple. So the TX16S Max is functionally completely identical in basically every way to the standard TX16S. It just has an upgraded color scheme and some nice metal buttons and a little bit more rigid plastic faceplate, but basically it's cosmetic upgrades. The AG01 gimbal that we're looking at here is the biggest performance upgrade you can make to the radio. The AG01 gimbal is full metal CNC, which means that it is heavier, it's more solid, it has more mass, and it has less flex. The demonstration that I like to do is to take the standard Hall gimbal and the AG01 and put them side by side, and then just push down on the Hall gimbal, and you can see how much flex it's got there at the bottom of its movement. Whereas if we do the same thing with the AG01 gimbal, there is, no matter how hard I push, there's literally no flex. I have said in the past, I'm not a gimbal snob, and I have tried many sets of gimbals that some loved and some hated, and I never really felt much of a difference between them. And the AG01 is the first time I've tried a gimbal and thought, wow, this is a big difference. I'm sure if I had been trying $1,000 Jetty radios, I would have felt really good gimbals, or $800 Futaba radios. I would have felt, I just haven't used those radios because they're all completely out of my price range. The AG01 is a very good gimbal. Will it make you a better pilot? I can tell you that objectively, the AG01 recenters perfectly every time on my quads with no jitter. It just sits at 0 center. Perfect. So it's a good gimbal, but I don't think anybody would say that the Hall effect gimbals on this radio are like holding them back, and many amazing pilots fly those gimbals. So no, the AG01 gimbals will not turn you from a Bardwell into a Vanover or a Min Chan Kim. Only stick time will do that. But my God, if I buy a Mercedes or a BMW or Ferrari, it's not going to make me a racing driver. But every time I sit in that car with that leather and that carbon fiber, I'm gonna feel so good. And to me, that's the reason to get the AG01, because if in your heart you're a person who wants a premium radio, but you don't have premium radio money, a TX16S with the AG01 gimbals, they feel really good. They have a weight to them. Literally, they are heavier. They feel more premium. They have no flex. They feel smooth and solid, and they're very, very good gimbals. Now, the other change that I want you to see in this radio is this CNC metal faceplate. When I say CNC metal faceplate, you probably think, oh yeah, that's good. I want what, metal versus plastic, take metal every time. I don't agree. There are two things about this metal faceplate that I don't like. And one is that it has a sharper profile here at the edge, and it is sort of flat across the front. And that means that when I hold it, I get a little bit of pressure here on my hand that I kind of don't like. And the other thing is that this metal, if you are anywhere where it is cold or hot, you take this radio and it is so cold on your hands because metal transmits heat very, very well. It's so cold on right now in my house with air conditioning. I just picked it up and it's cold on my hands. It's not uncomfortable. But if you're outside and it's a 40-degree day, or sorry, Celsius users, if you're outside and it's a cold or a hot day, you leave your radio sitting in the sun or in the cold air. The first time you pick it up, it's really uncomfortable on your hands. And to me, this seems like a good idea, but there is at the end of the day nothing wrong with the plastic faceplate. I like the form better, and it doesn't have that problem of being cold on your hands. So that's my personal take on it. But that is another option that is available on some of these radios. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we do a rundown of all the different variants of the radios that you can actually get, including the JB Special Edition, is the internal module. Whether you get one with a 4-in-1 module or an ExpressLRS module. And a 4-in-1 module means that the built-in radio inside the controller can bind to FrSky, Spectrum, Futaba, FlySky, all of the common legacy 2.4 gigahertz receivers. And the appeal of this is, number one, you may have a lot of quads with these receivers in them already, or you may have bind and fly quads that you're buying, and they will very commonly, most commonly with FrSky receivers, and you want to be able to bind to them. The disadvantage of this is that the range on these legacy protocols it's okay. I mean, it's been getting the job done for years, but it's not as good as it could be. And more modern protocols like ExpressLRS have much better range. A typical range for a FrSky, FlySky, Spectrum receiver might be something like 1 to 2 kilometers in open air, maybe a little bit further. Typical range for an ExpressLRS receiver might be something like 20 kilometers. That's not going to be typical, especially if you're flying somewhere with obstacles that need to penetrate. But the bottom line is ExpressLRS offers massive range and penetration improvements over those legacy protocols. And until recently, if you wanted to use ExpressLRS, you had to buy an ExpressLRS module and put it in the JR bay in the back of the radio. Some people were like, well, I never use my 4-in-1 module anyway. I don't have any FrSky receivers anymore. I'm all in on ExpressLRS, baby. So on this radio right now, this antenna is not hooked up to a 4-in-1 module. It doesn't do FrSky, FlySky, Spectrum, all those other legacy protocols. This is an ExpressLRS radio built in. And if you then wanted to do Crossfire, Ghost, or Tracer here for some reason, you could. Now it's time to look at some actual store listings for these radios and evaluate what features the radios have for what price that they're asking. And in addition to that, we're going to talk some more about the JB Special Edition, which is the one that I personally designed with Radio Master to my specifications, and what I think is so special about that. But before we do all that, if this video is helping you out, would you help me out by going down and hitting the like button? It sure would mean a lot to me. Thanks so much. And we'll start here on the Radio Master website. We'll go to Radio Controller and we'll look at the different variants of the TX16S. And one thing I want you to see is you can still buy the V1 TX16S Max. In fact, in some ways, you can get, there's color schemes that you can get for the TX16S Max that you can't get on the Mk2. And many of those upgrades and changes to the Mk2 were maybe not that constant, like, ooh, we changed the trainer port that you're not using anyway. So some people are going to feel like ordering the TX16S Max the V1 is the right choice for them. But we've already broken down all the differences between the standard Hall effect gimbal, the Max, and so forth. So I want to focus here on the special, like the JB Edition and the Mk2 Kim Edition. The JB Edition TX16S is a TX16S Max with purple hardware and carbon fiber faceplate and ExpressLRS module built in. When Radio Master asked me what specifications I wanted for my radio, the first thing I thought was, I want it to be like all the upgrades. And then I was like, it's fun to have a radio with all the upgrades, but really my focus has always been on accessibility, on getting people into the hobby. And I thought that a $400, $500 radio probably was not in keeping with that. So we haven't gone with the pre-installed AG01 gimbals, although you can buy the AG01 gimbals and install them, and I've got a tutorial about how to do that, linked down in the video description, of course. And in fact, that's what I run on a daily basis. I run the AG01 gimbals, but they cost like $160 extra, and a lot of people aren't going to feel that's worth it. The reason I put ExpressLRS in is because I want the world to move to ExpressLRS. Some people are still going to run Crossfire Tracer Ghost, and they're very appealing. But for beginners who would be using FreeSky, which has a bunch of problems, I want them to be moving to ExpressLRS, which has its own problems, but it's a different type of problems, and I think it's it's better performing at the very least. So that's what the JB TX16S is. Oh, in addition to that, it comes with the JB voice pack pre-installed. Now, if you do get the JB branded TX16S, you're definitely going to want that Bardwell voice pack working for you. And it looks like on mine, this is the SD card contents that came on my radio. If I go into the sounds folder, there is the JB voice pack, but it is not actually set up to use it by default. I assume that's how it's going to be on the radios that they're selling, although I don't know that for a fact. This was a pre-release sample that was sent to me. All you need to do is take the EN folder, and we're going to rename that. And we're going to name it, let's just name it EN_original. And then we're going to go down to the EN-Joshua Bardwell folder, and we're going to rename that. And we're just going to rename that as EN. And that will make the Joshua Bardwell voice pack be the new default for the radio. Incidentally, of course, I'm not the kind of guy to make my voice pack be exclusive or anything. It's actually available on bardwellvoicepack.com, which redirects to this GitHub page, and you can go to releases, and anyone who wants to is welcome to download this voice pack and install it in the sound folder on their radio. One more quick note for you. If you go into the EN folder and then into the system folder and you look for the file hello.wave, that is the file that's going to play on startup. And by default, it says welcome to OpenTX, which you probably don't want. If you're running EdgeTX, you can simply rename that. We could rename it as hello_OpenTX so it will not be used. And we could rename hello EdgeTX as hello.wave, and it'll now say welcome to EdgeTX. Or what I like to do is go back from system to the regular EN, and there's a little bit more sort of just fun and different stuff here. Like for example, my favorite is this one, and I like to copy that and then go into sounds-en and hello.wave, copy that, and then go into system and find hello.wave, and we'll just put that back as hello_edgetx.wave in case we want it in the future. We're going to paste in that new file, and we're going to rename it hello.wave. And now every time the radio starts up, it'll say that cute little saying. Anyway, you can sort of reshuffle this any way you want. There's a whole bunch of little things in here for you to play with, the standard stuff, as well as some fun things that they had me say, and you can customize it to your heart's content. The JB Edition TX16S Max is $250, the exact same price as the standard TX16S Max. Now let's take a look at the Mk2 Kim Edition TX16S, and this is the most premium, highest priced TX16S you can buy today, but there is a reason why it would not be my personal choice. It comes with all the bells and whistles. It's got the CNC metal faceplate, it's got AG01 gimbals pre-installed, and it's got this cool, I don't even know what you would call this color scheme. It's a really cool color scheme. Now, some people are going to object to that. They're just not going to like that color scheme. They're not going to like the pink side plates. But the reason that this would not be my personal choice is that I, as I said previously, am not a fan of the CNC metal faceplate. That $549 price, you can get a $250 TX16S Max. For $160, you can put the AG01 gimbals in it, and you can have, I think, a radio that I would prefer for a slightly lower price. And by the way, the Mk2 also comes with ExpressLRS in it, not FreeSky, and there's no option to buy it with the 4-in-1 module. Next, we'll head on over to Evan Turner, Heads Up FPV Store 533. They have a TX16S Max 533 edition. It is a standard TX16S Max with 4-in-1 module and a custom color scheme. That's it. It's worth pointing out this is the V1, the Mark 1 of the TX16S, where they may be upgrading to the Mark 2. As you can see, it's currently out of stock, and that perhaps they will when they restock, they'll have the Mark 2 in there. I also can't help but notice that it's listed at $299, whereas the TX16S Max on Radio Master's website was listed at around $250, and I have to wonder if that price is out of date, although it would be shocking these days for the price to go down rather than up, so we'll have to see. Next, we come to the PyroDrone Radio Master TX16S Max. This is a Mark 1 TX16S Max with a custom color scheme. And in this case, PyroDrone is also throwing in a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is probably a $15 or $20 value. The total price is $309. PyroDrone also sells one with the AG01 gimbals pre-installed, and it's worth pointing out that the AG01 gimbals cost $160 when bought separately, but if it's a markup on a pre-installed radio, then it's only a $70 uptick, which is a pretty big discount. This is honestly the closest to the radio that I fly today. However, it's worth pointing out that currently it is only available with the 4-in-1 module. It is not available with the built-in ExpressLRS module. Next, we've got the GetFPV Edition, and this is interesting because it is the same as the Mk2 Edition. It's the Mark II with the metal CNC faceplate and the AG01 gimbals pre-installed. It has a much more muted color scheme, which is going to appeal to some people, and it has the 4-in-1 module in it, not the ExpressLRS module. So if you really liked the Mk2 radio, but you didn't like the color scheme, or you don't want to use ExpressLRS as your internal module, the GetFPV one may be the one for you. As far as I know, that's all the variants of these radios that are out there today. And there are links down in the video description to all of them. It would mean so much to me if you would use those links if you decide to make a purchase, because they are affiliate links. And what that means is that when you make any purchase at the affiliated store, after clicking that link, I get a small commission. In addition, if you buy the JB branded radio, I get a much larger commission because that's how these things usually work. But buy whichever one is your favorite. I'd love it if you bought mine, but I'd really love for you to just be happy with your decision and get the right radio for you. Use those affiliate links down below. It sure does mean a lot. Earlier in this video, I was super excited that these radios have started coming with Edge TX instead of Open TX, and I'm willing to bet a lot of you guys have no idea what I'm so excited about. So if you're looking for something to watch next, I'd like to refer you to this video, 6 reasons you should switch to Edge TX today. You won't be switching to Edge TX because these radios already have them, but there's 6 concrete things that Edge TX offers you as a user that make it really compelling. That's going to do it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Happy flying.